We are back on the Original Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Wednesday. Got kind of a busy week going on. I still have this cold. It's getting better. But I got to tell you, there was a period of time when I was about ready to take some ivermectin to get rid of this shit. Now it's not COVID, it's a cold. But it's one of those ones that hangs on for a long time. And the problem is when you start talking, that's when things start happening with your throat. So I have the tea again. And hopefully that will get me through it. If I have to, I'll pause things and edit shit out. But generally, I think I'm going to make it. It's going to be fine. I've come this far. I'm better off today than I was yesterday and the day before. So we should have no problem getting through this. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, too. There's some crazy shit going on out there. Joe Biden doing a hell of a job with the Hamas-Israeli war. It's not just him, but he's the one kind of quarterbacking this whole thing and pulling people together and getting hostages released and ceasefires extended. Like I told you before, Joe Biden is going to get this thing resolved ultimately. And it won't be just him, of course, but he'll be the main guy, certainly the only guy from America to do it. And he's going to get a lot of praise for this. And this is troubling the Republicans. This is why they're trying to tear him down right now. It's not going to work. This thing will be settled sometime in the future, presumably before the election. And this won't be a negative for Joe Biden. It will be a positive. I get people still sending me notes saying, what about all these people tearing Joe Biden down because he's siding with Israel and he's going to lose in 2024? This is all about Republican messaging. This has nothing to do with what's real. I make a point to talk to all young people I run into, whether they be millennial or Gen Z. I ask them two questions. Are you mad at Joe Biden about this Israeli thing? And most of them don't know much about it, no more than I do, certainly. And that isn't the thing that's foremost on their mind. Then I ask them, are you going to vote against Joe Biden? And they'll say something to me like, you mean Donald Trump? I go, yeah, would you vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden? And they say, fuck no. So I'm not too worried about all this shit we're hearing. And I think when this is all said and done, Joe Biden's going to look pretty good here. You know, they keep talking about how Joe Biden, the high gas prices and shit. Tell you what, I bought gas today. It was at $2.89 a gallon. That's the lowest I've seen it in a long time. So if Joe Biden was responsible for the high gas prices, and of course he isn't, then I would presume the Republicans are going to give him credit for the lower gas prices, which of course they won't. They're doing everything they can to smear Joe Biden because they can't beat him on facts and truth and law and accomplishments. They can't beat him there because the Republicans have accomplished nothing. They got the majority in the House of Representatives in 2022. Here we are, late 2023, going into 2024. They have still yet to accomplish fucking anything. Things don't look good for Republicans in 2024. They know it. We know it. But there's some people out there that keep thinking, oh my God, what if Donald Trump wins? Not going to win. It's not going to happen. There is nothing that suggests there's a path for him to win the presidency in 2024. All right, I have some emails. First one starts out, Dear Boomer, I have just been watching Glenn Kirshner, who's a solid guy, discuss with Brian Taylor Cohen, who's also good, the length of the Washington, D.C. case, and he said 4 to 6 weeks. That is end of April, beginning of May for a verdict, and then there'll be a period of 60 to 90 days for the sentencing hearing. I was reminded that he has just tweeted out his probably dictated letter about him being a perfect physical specimen by the doctor, who happens to be a rheumatologist for some strange reason. probably because that was the only one he could pay to sign the letter for it. And I thought, this is not going to help him at his sentencing hearing. Now they can't claim that he's too old or infirm to avoid a long sentence. Now, as far as we know, as far as we've ever heard, Donald Trump is an absolute Superman. He's certainly capable of doing a long jail term. And as I've said before, I hope he lives a long and healthy life in fucking jail. The email goes on. It says, it also dawned on me that if there was ever a time for him to run, that would be it. But then we have his ego and his faith in his Supreme Court picks to drag his arse out of the fire, which I think he will be severely disappointed with. I do too. Going back to the chum in the water comment I made with Republicans attacking like sharks, I think they may be able to test the strength of public feeling on the matter and might even refuse to take his appeal. Yeah, I think that's a distinct possibility. Even evangelicals have started speaking up about his lack of moral character recently. Oh, you just realized that, huh? So the chum is defiantly being picked up by more and more sharks. I wonder who will be the next to desert him. You know, I'll be honest. When he lost the race in 2020, I thought they would step back and say, okay, he's a loser. We're not going to stick with him any longer. But they didn't do it. They've stuck with him for 2-3 years now. It's fucking crazy. I don't know how he does it, but these people are so loyal and devoted to this guy, to their detriment, of course, because they're fucking stupid. Anybody who looks at Donald Trump and doesn't see that he's a corrupt criminal of low morals and low intellect have to be pretty much the same. To them, he seems smart. To the rest of us, he's a babbling idiot. Email continues, we all know they aren't bringing in decent donations in the GOP committees over many states and centrally. Not just big donors either. The small donations have dried up drastically too. We will have to see if that improves as the election draws ever close, though. But it ain't looking good so far. No, it's not. In fact, we know that Koch Industries, formerly the Koch brothers, but one is dead, so they're not brothers anymore. But Koch had spent a lot of money. They're one of the biggest Republican donors in the country. They spent a ton of money putting out commercials saying, look, Donald Trump's dead in the water. We can't win with him. Go someplace else. And they spent a lot of money doing that. And now they've said that they will support Nikki Haley, which won't do them much better. They're just seeing her as probably the most normal of the bunch, the safest bet. But the idea that Nikki Haley would be the nominee, I find that hard to believe, being a woman with immigrant parents. She's an immigrant too, I think. No, she can't be an immigrant. She couldn't run for president unless she was born here. So her parents are immigrants. She was born here. But I just don't see the Republicans, unless out of desperation, go with her. Email continues. Another thing I wanted to mention, I was watching Bo of the Fifth Column today, and he was talking about what a disaster this invasion of Ukraine has been for Russia, and that tanks on the subject think now that this will set Russia so far backwards that they have lost so much in this war that their standing in the world was depleted so badly that they will no longer have equal standing with America and China economically. I don't think they do now anyway. I mean, they've got nuclear weapons, but their economy sucks. Also, they have had marches by the wives of soldiers in the fighting because they don't rotate their troops. Some have been there since the start, and they have had problems getting their pay. Putin isn't liking this show of unrest and has resided further request for demonstrations. With all these problems and the recent rash of unfortunate accidents of high-ranking military officials, I'm wondering how long it would be before someone plans some kind of takeover. Would solve one world problem if they did. Keep on blogging. Angela the Brit. Well, thank you, Angela. I have to believe that there have probably already been some plans to kick his ass out of there. He's nothing but problems for Russia, and I think people note that he's kind of in a weakened state. We know his health's not very good. We know the general public doesn't like him. Their economy sucks because of him. Yeah, this whole thing with Israel and Hamas was intended by Russia to take the attention away from what's going on in Ukraine. And I don't know if it meant to give them an advantage or if it just wanted to take the attention off of it so he doesn't continue to look stupid. Unfortunately, he still does look stupid. And I think I kind of thought something would happen by now, but I think that we will be looking at some kind of change in power in Russia at some point. You have to understand that Vladimir Putin is probably pretty well guarded, is aware that people are out for him. So he's taking all the precautions. And, like they say, if you're going to shoot the king, you better not miss. Because if they do try to overthrow him, which they should, if they fuck up, there's going to be a lot of dead Russians. All right. The next email, I think, comes from KCT. Mike, we're such a hot mess. We've created our own multiple layers of crisis and conflict. Israel versus Palestine, right versus left, haves and have-nots, east versus west, public school versus homeschool, church versus unchurched, fake news versus real news, Russia versus Ukraine, conservative versus liberal, Christian versus non-Christian, NATO versus non-NATO, United Nations versus non-United Nations, capitalism versus socialism. The list goes on for hours. There is a divide. Mankind has always been divided. This divide is not limited to nations or people. It's embedded deep within most political, economic, religious, governmental, judicial, and educational constructs. One side of this divide are those who desire to know more, consider alternate ideas, and embrace change so the greater good can be served. The other side of this divide are those with fixed ideas, refusing to consider thoughts outside their hardened concepts, holding fast to notions that sustain beneficiaries of their fixed ideas. The divide does not favor left or right-leaning agendas. Both the left and the right take turns at compromising the greater good for the sake of their respective self-serving agendas. I would agree with you. We intentionally let the divide grow deeper and wider, even though to err is human. To be human is to be different. Differences identify us, but should not divide us. But knowing this, we still lie to ourselves, and those like us, insisting on differences, must divide us. And I think that is the essence of the Republican Party, or a lot of religious organizations. If you ain't us, you're the enemy. I'll never understand how we, most of us, knowing we're all imperfect, somehow think we're entitled to grace, consideration, or latitude, but insist on hell raining down on those who do not share our identity or ideas, as if treating each other humanely is not possible just because of our differences. Then, to add insult to injury, we call for full-blown attacks on anyone who tries to heal or overcome the divide. We'll even attack people of our own side of the divide just to keep like-minded members in line with our identity and ideas. The divide is not about good or evil, or just or unjust, righteous or unrighteous. It's about pretending who we really are. We become very clever and calculating with who we claim to be. We've learned to covertly compromise the good in us while simultaneously candy coating the evils also in us. The same is true with our political, economic, and religious, governmental, judicial, and educational constructs. Claiming to be good, just, and righteous. all while indulging our true selves with evil, unjust, and unrighteous fruits, then quietly washing our hands of humans in harm's way while ignoring our underlying responsibility for the same suffering. It's selfishness on steroids. It's I, me, my mentality ahead of anyone else receiving any version of equitable consideration. It's indifference to suffering. It's interference with opportunity and fairness. It's a craving for power and control. It's a fear of losing our safe and secure home sanctuaries. It's a deaf ear and a blind eye to oppression as long as the return favors our cause. Well said. He goes on to say, yes, there is a divide, and it reeks with the high cost of human suffering and oppression. This divide will continue to grow deeper and wider unless we intentionally step up, speak out, stand firm, deliberately insisting on change. Our voice and our vote aren't enough. It will take our unwavering, visible, undeniable actions at every level of our environment's constructs for positive, transparent change. Note, being indifferent to the divide has the same impact as embracing the divide. Don't be indifferent. KCT. It puts VR. I'm guessing that means very respectfully. But you make some good points. I mean, one of the reasons we are where we are today is because of apathy. We thought, well, we'll just let the government handle it. We'll just do whatever they tell us and it'll be fine. I'm busy with my own life. I don't need to get involved. And I got to say, I'm no different than anybody else at the time. As I'm younger and working and trying to raise a family, kind of felt the same way. I got things I got to deal with on my own without having to delve into politics. That was until two things happened. Donald Trump and I retired. I actually retired before Donald Trump ever took office, but that gave me the time and the attitude to start talking about this stuff and hopefully get other people talking about it. Because, like KCT said, that's what I think is important. Our votes are important. But for decades, the Republicans have held the narrative. You see it right now, like with Donald Trump leading in 5 swing states because of polls. These polls are some ways to try to shift the narrative to whatever the Republicans want, or that all the young people hate Joe Biden because he's standing with Israel. That isn't true. What it is messaging from the Republicans, and the people in the Democratic side that buy into it are being hoodwinked. They're being fooled. And that's why we have to change it. And I guess that's the intention of the Rational Boomer podcast and the TikToks and stuff. Somebody else to say something loud enough to get other people to listen. The real story, the facts, what to avoid, what to latch onto. Now, I'm not the absolute expert on anything. All I can do is read what I read, listen to what I listen to, analyze it to the best of my ability, and try to come out with some kind of, I don't know, some kind of strategy in dealing with these things. As I've told you before, this is kind of who I am. And I think it had a lot to do with how I grew up and my father and all this stuff. But I have a weird mindset. Whenever I look at something, I go, okay, that's bad. At that moment, I don't scream and cry and go into a corner and curl up. I immediately go to work in my head with how do I deal with it? What are my options? What could happen? What won't happen? And look at all the facts. And then I can kind of analyze it down to some kind of, at least a remedy from my standpoint of how we deal with it. And what we see with the Republicans, what I saw with them is them controlling the narrative completely, the Democrats being weak about it and just taking their whipping. And I thought, Well, that's not going to go well. If you continue to let these bullies bully us, it's never going to stop. It's not until you punch back, theoretically, that you're going to make some headway. So, in my own small way, I thought, well, that's maybe what my lot in life is, to do this on the Rational Boomer, see if it gets any traction, see if anybody buys into it. And fortunately, there's been a lot of people on the podcast and on TikTok, of course, that are listening. Not because I'm any genius. There's two reasons why people listen to what I do here. First of all, these are thoughts they've had. And secondly, I'm the one dumb enough to speak loud about it and throw it in people's faces. A lot of people have a lot of things in their life where they don't have the freedom to do the things I do. And I'm appreciative of that. I don't work for anybody. Nobody tells me, don't do this, don't say that. I've even worked it out with TikTok, not TikTok directly, but all these people that do something similar to what I do, that were getting videos taken down and banned and all that stuff. I saw that as a real threat, I thought, what's more important here, that I own some Republicans, Trumplafucks, or that I get the message out? And I decided the message is far more important than any fight I might have. So the only response to that was, let's block every Trumplafuck so I can keep talking. And that's kind of what I've done. It's probably cost me followers and numbers, but at least the followers I have, or the peers that I have, are quality. They're not just any knuckle motherfucker. I mean, I today, just tonight, just before I did this, I blocked probably 10 people that showed up in my comments because I knew where they were going with this. And I'm seeing a lot of people saying, one guy came on and said, I'm a Democrat, but you seem so angry. Do you think you should really worry about this stuff and continue to rant about this stuff? Now that tells me it's a Republican or a Trumplafuck trying to come in the back door. So I blocked that motherfucker. People ask me, are you mad or your blood pressure up? I'm never mad. I'm not the kind of guy that gets out of control and yells and screams. That's not what I do. But when I find something that irritates me, I do go after it. And of course, this is what we're talking about when we're talking about Donald Trump, the Republicans, and all that's going on. I'm not under any delusion to think that I'm going to do any mass changes in anything by myself. I certainly can't do that. But the effort has to be made. If I'm in the position I'm in where I don't have a job, I'm retired, and I have the ability to speak it, I feel like I'm kind of required, responsible to do that. And what good it does, we just wait and see. We wait and see what kind of good it does. Anyway, thank you for that, KCT. Nice letter, very well spoken, and I appreciate it immensely. All right, the next one comes from Stephanie. She said, hi, I was wondering when Donald Trump uses the phrase peekaboo regarding Letitia James. It is a slander, racist remark from, I'm not going to say the word. He calls her peekaboo. And I'll be honest with you, we've talked to Old Soul, who's an African-American woman, very bright, and she takes it as a black person as a racist remark. You got peekaboo, and there's another word that starts with a J that references black people, something that I heard all the time when I was a kid from my dad. I think this needs to be passed around and let people know that it is. He is being racist. You can Google it. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, I don't think there's any question that he's making an attempt at being racist. It's a dog whistle, if you will, to fire up all the other racist motherfuckers out there. I don't doubt that at all. I know that Old Soul believes that that is the case, and I trust her. I'm an old white guy. I don't fucking know. I can't imagine what else it would mean. Why would he call her peekaboo? it seems problematic. It seems like he's doing that shit. So yeah, I agree. And the problem is, Stephanie, that he does so many things that are racist, anti-Semitic, and misogynistic. You know, every time he does something worse, and then everybody forgets about the last thing he did. I think I think the accountability will come when Letitia James beats his ass, takes everything from him, and leaves him as a shell. That may be the accountability he gets from his racist tendencies when it comes to Letitia James. All right. The last email comes from Javier from South Texas. He says, "Hey, Boomer, you had an excellent email today that I heard. When in the hell are these judges going to show some harshness, putting it lightly? I totally agree with the person's statement. Someone needs to die in order to put an end to the biggest Trump-la-fuck out there. Someone getting hurt. Really? Paul Pelosi got hurt. The idiot got sentenced, and I believe, or the orange crush still vomiting diarrhea. What America do we live in?" Javier from South Texas. I agree with you. And you make a good point. I hadn't considered that. I did suggest that, you know, if Donald Trump is allowed to continue to do what he's doing and somebody gets hurt or somebody gets killed, well, then you got to say that the judges have blood on their hands. They have laws, they have the authority. They could do something to Donald Trump, but they're too worried about how it's going to look with a former president and what kind of problems it might cause with the First Amendment and all this bullshit. This is a problem we see all the time, how we have criminals that seem to get all kinds of rights and victims who get shafted. And that's kind of what's happening here. There should be no politics in the judicial system. The law is the law, and if you break the law, you're held accountable. That's the way it should be. But we know with Donald Trump right now, he's breaking the law every fucking day, and he's not been held accountable. Now we know his gag order in New York was sent to the appeals court. Sounds like we're going to get an answer to that tomorrow, and I suspect the gag order will be upheld. And that's well and good. But if they aren't going to hold him responsible, if they aren't going to punish him for what he does, it doesn't really make a fucking difference. This is something that has to change. I mean, it kind of goes back to like the Mueller report when they say Donald Trump was exonerated. Yet in that Mueller report, it showed 10 different occasions of obstruction of justice, serious crimes with a maximum penalty of 20 years for each count. But he wasn't indicted because he was a sitting president. They say no one's above the law, but I beg to differ. If you're a sitting president, apparently you are above the law. Otherwise, he would have been indicted way back then. Now that he's no longer president, what's the excuse? Why isn't he being punished for his crimes? I mean, ultimately, he will go through these trials and be convicted and be punished. But why do we have to put people's lives at risk, their safety at risk, just because we're too afraid to do something that Donald Trump is fucking begging for? He's begging to be put in jail. And maybe you don't put him in jail till the start of his trial. Throw him in there for 2 weeks, see how he likes it, and see how talkative he is when he comes out. Something needs to be done. And I think we fucked around with this enough that we need to get something done pretty quickly. And I'm hoping once this gag order is reinstated, the judge can't be too happy at this point. One of the very things that he was so angry about was Donald Trump talking about his law clerk. Well, since we've had this stay, he's gone after the law clerk. And this law clerk is getting all kinds of harassment, 30 to 50 calls a day threatening her life, maybe 50 to 75 posts in social media. This poor woman is just trying to fucking do her job. There's nothing she's doing wrong, but because Donald Trump flaps his lips, this woman's life is in peril. How much more do you have to do before you punish somebody? It's sad that we've gotten this far without him being held accountable. I can only hope that in the coming weeks, when he does violate these gag orders again, that they finally fucking do something. It sets bad precedents, not only for Donald Trump, but for any politicians that find themselves in this position. That's why it's important that Donald Trump is held accountable for what he did as president, because if he's not, then any other fucking president that comes through can feel like they have complete immunity and do whatever they fucking want. And I'm talking about Democrats as well as Republicans. There's precedents being set here. And if we do it wrong and we don't hold people accountable, we're in for a big mess in the coming decades because people will take advantage of it. All right. We are going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast, moving through the second half of the program. Things going pretty well today. My voice is a little weird. I'm in the late stages of getting rid of this cold. I still have congestion in my upper chest, maybe a little scratchiness in my vocal cords, but we're getting by. We're getting by with a little help from my friend, black tea. They just tell me black tea was the best, and I don't know fuck all about tea, so I heard green tea is good too. Doesn't really matter. I think the fact that it's warm as opposed to cold, that's what I figured out. If I'm drinking water or pop or something like that, that cold seems to agitate my vocal cords. So this seems to help. A while back, I was talking about the case down in Georgia. We know that we have some people that have already cut deals in that RICO case. There was 19 total, and 3 or 4 of these people have already cut deals. And some other people have come to me and said, well, Mark Meadows and Donald Trump will just cut deals. And I said, I don't think that's the case. I mean, what do they really have to offer? Especially Donald Trump. He's the man at the top of the heap. He's got nobody to roll on. I think he may be more or less the target. And then it came out today from Fulton County prosecutor, Fani Willis, that apparently I was right. Now, it didn't take any genius to figure this out, but this is what happened. Fulton County prosecutors do not intend to offer plea deals to Donald Trump and at least 2 high-level co-defendants charged in connection with their efforts to overturn the 2020 election. The individuals seen as ineligible for deals include Trump, his former White House chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and Trump's former lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. Everybody else available for a deal. All the other people that haven't cut deals yet, expect them to cut deals. And I think that was Fani Willis's plan from the beginning. Indict 19 of them and just leave those 3 clowns standing because they are the most guilty, the most egregious, and those are the head of the snake, if you will. Now, aside from those 3, the Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis, has opened plea talks or has left open the possibility of talks with the remaining co-defendants in hope that they ultimately decide to become cooperating witnesses against the former president, the people said. It sucks to be the targets of a RICO case, I guess. And Meadows thought he was doing so well after being granted immunity by special counsel Jack Smith in D.C. He's clearly not out of the woods by a long shot. I'm thinking all 3 of these guys are in some deep fucking trouble. It's a weird situation with Meadows. He got a complete immunity deal with Jack Smith in the federal case, but he won't get any kind of deal in Georgia. And the fact of the matter is, much of the facts and the evidence in both these cases are the same. That's going to be a weird situation because whatever comes out in the March case in DC may be used against Mark Meadows in Georgia, even though Mark Meadows has immunity in the federal case. This doesn't paint a great picture for Giuliani, Meadows, or Donald Trump. In Georgia, they're pretty well fucked, and there's no way out. And I think that's exactly what Fani Willis had planned for. You indict 19, you get 16 to roll. You have a court case, and those three are all together, and it's manageable, and they have the facts, and they have 16 people that have pled out and cut deals to go against these three. It's exactly what Fani Willis wanted to do, and it looks like that's what she's going to get, unless some of these people decide they don't want to cut a deal. Now, if any of them decide they don't want to cut a deal, they are some dumb motherfuckers, and they deserve whatever they get. But this is all pointed at the three men that are targets: Trump, Giuliani, and Meadows. They're going after those fuckers hard. This is a RICO case, and there's a lot of time to be doled out should they be found guilty. And I think we can feel pretty confident that they will be found guilty. All right, there was a story about former Vice President Mike Pence. Now, Mike Pence keeps coming out into the press trying to make himself out to be a hero because he did what he was legally responsible to do and certified the electoral votes on January 6, 2021. Yeah, I was with Trump and I did this and I did that, but I stood for the Constitution. Yeah, well, turns out not after you tried to avoid it. Former Vice President Mike Pence briefly considered not presiding over the ceremony that formalized his coup attempt, or his boss's coup attempt in the 2020 election, once again raising questions about the contemporaneous scheming about Iowa's Chuck Grassley presiding in his stead. Now, Chuck Grassley is a senator from Iowa. He's about, 250 years old. He's an old motherfucker. And he started talking before the January 6th certification. And he was talking about the prospect that he would take Pence's place because he didn't think Pence was going to be there. Well, later on, his people said, fuck, Chuck, you shouldn't have said that. And they stepped back from that and said, well, he just meant in case Pence doesn't show up. Yeah, Chuck, you let the cat out of the bag, you dumb fuck. Now, in his daily planner, in which he also took journal-like notes, Pence on Christmas Eve in 2020 wrote, it might be better to abdicate his constitutionally prescribed role overseeing the Electoral College tally to avoid bruising then-President Donald Trump's ego. So, this hero of the Constitution is more concerned with Donald Trump's ego, which is massive, as opposed to the Constitution. Yeah, motherfucker, you're a hero. It goes on to say, not feeling like I should attend electoral count, he wrote, according to the report Tuesday by ABC News. Too many questions, too many doubts, too hurtful to my friend. Therefore, I'm not going to participate in the certification election. Now, he's the hero because he was there and he did it. In fact, when they attacked the building, this is what I imagine happened. He was going to try to get out of it. Then it was told by many people that he couldn't get out of it. He gets to the Capitol. The Capitol gets attacked. They bring him downstairs into the garage, and the Secret Service wants to take him away to keep him safe, presumably. And then Mike Pence said, no, I don't want to go. Now, he would make you believe that he was being heroic and wanted to do his constitutional right, but his notes suggest otherwise. This pussy ass bitch was going to back out of it, like I presumed was going to be the case. But once he got down there with the Secret Service and the cars in the garage, and he saw the attack on the building, he probably thought a couple of things. First of all, if he left the building, he would look like a coward and it would ruin any chances of any political life henceforth. But he also had to be a little scared. I mean, he knew who Donald Trump was. These Secret Service men put him in a car and take him away from the Capitol, unbeknownst to a lot of folks. What could possibly happen to him? Now, normal situations, that sounds like a crazy fucking idea. But when Donald Trump already decided that he was going to let people kill him, I think Mike Pence got a little nervous. If Donald Trump will send a rogue crowd to him to kill him, to hang him, no less, he had to be thinking twice about getting in a car with Secret Service with Donald Trump still as president. God knows what could happen. Everything he did was about fear, some of it reasonable, some of it just because he's a pussy ass bitch. But he ain't no fucking hero. I guarantee you that. He's definitely not a hero. Pence soon abandoned the notion and returned his previous plan to preside over the January 6, 2021 ceremony, citing a conversation with his son, an active duty Marine who reminded him that both had taken an oath to protect and uphold the Constitution. Well, great. Your son was able to remind you that your duty was to the Constitution and not to Donald Trump's massive ego. Former aides to Pence declined to comment on ABC's report, which offers new details about Pence's testimony before the federal grand jury that ultimately indicted Trump on 4 felony counts based on his attempt to remain in power despite having lost. And this news story may be part of the reason why Pence dropped out of the race. He knew this was coming. Trump's lawyers, Trump is entitled to receive grand jury testimony of witnesses that special counsel Jack Smith may call at trial, are legally permitted to release that testimony absent a gag order. They did not respond to Huffington Post inquiries Tuesday. Now, Trump began pressuring Pence to use his role as Senate president to rule that the electoral ballots from a number of states were invalid because of massive voter fraud and to simply declare Trump the winner instead of Joe Biden, which is all a bunch of bullshit, and we know that. Pence, though, repeatedly told Trump that he had seen no evidence of fraud widespread enough to have affected the outcome, and that in any event, he did not have the authority as Trump demanded. Now, in the weeks following the election, Pence did discuss with his staff, but decided against the option of not showing up for January 6, 2021 certification. I can see what he was going to do. I'm not going to show up and then tell everybody I overslept or the dog ate it or some fucking thing. But apparently there is some precedence for it. Apparently Vice President Hubert Humphrey in 1969 had not shown up for the vote certification of the man who had defeated him for President, Richard Nixon. Trump and his aides nevertheless continued pushing for the Pence card option, as they described it, with 2 of Trump's lawyers actually mentioning the possibility of Grassley, a Republican, and at the time the president pro tempore of the Senate, potentially being in the chair on January 6th. Now, had that happened, we would have had a much different turnout. Biden would still be president, but we would have gone through a lot of shit. One of the lawyers, John Eastman, who's also indicted and going to be sent to jail. Well, actually, in Georgia, he may get a deal too. In September, cited the Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate himself and declined to answer questions about Grassley during his disbarment proceeding in California. Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. Grassley on January 5th, 2021 told reporters, if the vice president isn't there and we don't expect him to be there, I will be presiding over the Senate and obviously listening to the debate without saying anything. Yeah. You were the ringer in that one. You would have tried to pull off that bullshit. Of course, after he said that, his office said, Chuck, what the fuck you doing, you old fuck? His office quickly sent out a clarification that he was referring only to the Senate session that day pertaining to possible challenges to electoral slates from particular states, not to the joint session in which the votes would be counted. Yeah, right. Grassley spokesperson Taylor Foy on Tuesday said Grassley had no knowledge of Trump's plot. I don't know. It kind of sounds like he did. As he said in the past, he only learned of those schemes when they were publicly reported many months later. Of course, that's what he's going to fucking say. But we know better than that. Jack Smith knows better than that. Jack Smith's January 6th related case is just one of 4 criminal prosecution on Trump. And it's going to get very ugly for Trump. And what's going to be interesting to see if Grassley gets called out in a trial. And it'd be interesting to find out if he had any particular involvement in this whole plan. Now, he says he doesn't, but that's what they all fucking say. I think Chuck is just an old man that was probably being manipulated. He was taken in and hoodwinked. He's not a good man, if you'd even consider this, but I don't think he's amongst the guiltiest of these people, but he's part of it. And somebody needs to talk to him. He needs to be put under oath to answer the questions. Now, if he decides to lie under oath, that's at his own peril. But Chuck Grassley, he maybe want to think about retiring too. All right, Americans for Prosperity Action, a key component of the political network founded by billionaire Koch brothers, is endorsing Nikki Haley in the GOP presidential primary. The group announced that in a memo on Tuesday. Now, this is interesting. We know the Koch brothers, one of which is dead, is probably one of the biggest donators to the Republican Party. They do a lot of shit, and they try to manipulate this country through their money and through the Republican Party. They were big supporters of Donald Trump at one point, but back about 6 months ago, they decided to fund a campaign to basically tell people Donald Trump's dead in the water. He's not a winner for the Republican Party. We need to look elsewhere. Donnie was not happy about that, and losing that amount of money is a big fucking deal. So now as we get closer to the primaries, the Koch brothers, or the one Koch brother, decides that he's going to support Nikki Haley. Not surprising, because of all that's ensued over the past 6 years, the Republican Party comes off pretty fucking crazy. And even the Koch brothers, being that they've been in business and they're billionaires, know that this is not a winning recipe. So they need to support somebody that's more reasonable, more normal. And Nikki Haley fits that bill. I mean, we've got to remember, though, that Nikki Haley was as big a Trump humper as anybody. She was an ambassador to the United Nations under Donald Trump. She was a supporter of Donald Trump. As much as she talks shit now, she still has that stink of Donald Trump hanging over her. She also has the issue of being a woman and being of East Indian ancestry. These are two things that you wouldn't expect the Republican Party to get back behind and support. That just shows you how the Koch brothers see this desperate situation. She's the only one that seems normal, and they're going to support her, even though she doesn't fit the gender or the ethnicity that the Koch brothers would normally support, an old white guy. Now, the endorsement represents a significant boost for Haley less than 2 months from her first GOP nominating contest in Iowa, where Haley is virtually tied for second place with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. And she has been steadily rising in the polls as the main alternative to Donald Trump, of course, the front runner. AFP Action is proud to throw, this is what they said, AFP Action, or the Koch brothers, is proud to throw our full support behind Nikki Haley, who offers America the opportunity to turn the page on current political era to win the Republican primary and defeat Joe Biden next November. She has what it takes to lead a policy agenda to take our nation's biggest challenges and help ensure our country's best days are ahead. With the grassroots and the data capability we bring to bear in this race, no other organization is better equipped to help her do it. Now, of course, that means we got a lot of fucking money and we can manipulate a lot of people. We can buy a lot of advertising. So expect Nikki Haley's stock to go up a bit, and expect Ron DeSantis's stock to go down real quick, like fucking tomorrow. In case you've forgotten, Ron DeSantis is going to debate Gavin Newsom tomorrow on Fox News. The dumbest decision I've ever seen anybody take. Ron DeSantis is awkward and goofy and weird. Gavin Newsom is intelligent, handsome, and slick as fuck, and a hell of a debater. You saw what he did to Sean Hannity on his very own show. So this is not going to go well for Ron DeSantis. This is all about ego for Ron DeSantis. He really believes he's going to win this debate. And I will guarantee you, he will not come off looking good here. He will not, even though they will try to slight Gavin Newsom because it's Fox News and Gavin is a Democrat. It won't matter. Gavin tore apart Sean Hannity on Fox News. So he won't have any problem with Ron DeSantis, or as we call him, Shoddy. I don't watch Fox News, but I have a feeling I'm going to be watching that because it's going to be a fucking massacre. If it's not, I'll be incredibly surprised because Ron DeSantis isn't up for the challenge. Now, this super PAC was founded by Charles and the late David Koch, whatever the fuck their name in. They had vowed to spend tens of millions of dollars to prevent Trump from becoming the 2024 nominee after sitting out the last two presidential cycles. Already, the group has spent heavily on anti-Trump mailers and other outreach to influence the election. Haley's the former UN ambassador, South Carolina governor, has seen her popularity rise slowly but steadily since launching her campaign in February. And it's only because she's the one that kind of appears somewhat normal amongst a bunch of fucking crazies. As Senator Mitt Romney, a Trump critic, said, the AFP endorsement is proof that Haley is exceeding expectations for her candidacy. But she's still not even fucking close to Donald Trump, a guy that's going to be going to jail. He's the hot property amongst the Republicans. And I got to tell you, the Republicans got to be nervous about this. They know Donald Trump can't be the nominee. They know he can't win the election, yet everybody's voting for him. This is a fucking nightmare for the Republican Party. Here's an interesting story, and I like this story a lot. James Comer, head of the Oversight Committee, chairman of the Oversight and Reform Committee, they're still looking into trying to impeach Joe Biden and still going after Hunter Biden. They can't find any tie between the two in terms of business or money, but they're looking really hard. They just know there's something there. So James Comer came out and said, we're going to subpoena Joe Biden's brother and Hunter Biden. And of course, we know the Republicans don't have a lot of respect for subpoenas because Jim Jordan and a bunch of others didn't even show up to the January 6th committee. So how they can expect people to show up to their subpoenas, I don't know. But Hunter Biden called Representative James Comer's bluff, and it appears to have worked. I love this. As much as he was a drug addict, he's not a dumb guy. He's a lawyer and has been for many years. On Tuesday, President Joe Biden's son said that he would testify to Comer's oversight committee, but only if it was public. Comer wanted it behind closed doors, called his bluff. Fox correspondent Chad Pergram reported that Comer is lashing out at the request for transparency. I thought the Republicans were all about transparency. Why not have it out in public? You seem to know that Hunter Biden is a criminal, so let's show it to the world. You talk about transparency, but no, they don't want that. They want it behind closed doors. This is what he said. Hunter Biden is trying to play by his own rules instead of following the rules required for everyone else. You mean the rules that Jim Jordan and all you other motherfuckers ignored? That one? Pergram paraphrased Comer as saying, that won't stand with the House Republicans. Our lawfully issued subpoena to Hunter Biden requires him to appear for a deposition on December 13th. Lawfully issued subpoena. You mean like the lawfully issued subpoena to Jim Jordan and all the rest of the motherfuckers that you ignored? Steve Bannon ignored? He went on to say, we expect full cooperation with our subpoena for a deposition, but also agree that Hunter Biden should have the opportunity to testify in a public setting at a future date. Here's what's going to happen. They're going to put him in a room. They're going to have this hearing, and then they're going to leak little bits and pieces, cherry-picked items, and then they're going to lie, and they're going to make him look bad. And then that live date, that public debate or public hearing will never happen. That's how the Republicans do things. We all know it. Hunter Biden knows it. Now, Comer hasn't revealed why he doesn't want Biden's hearing to be public. Representative Dan Goldman pointed out that Republicans tend to distort what is said behind closed doors. Representative Jasmine Crockett agreed. Refusing to hold a public hearing allows the party in power to construct their own version of the truth. If House Republicans have the smoking gun they claim to have, why are they afraid to show it to the American people? What are they trying to hide? There have been 2 previous offers by Biden team to cooperate with the Oversight Committee that Comer has turned down. Biden's lawyer, Abby Lowell's letter to Congress said, we're happy to do it, but it has to be public. And guess what? They turned it down. That should be a red flag. If they are so sure, and they sure sound like they're sure, that there's something about Hunter Biden that's going to connect with Joe Biden and that's going to be enough to impeach him. See, this is what it's all about with the Republicans. It's not about truth or facts or law. It's not about any of that. It's about trying to infer things or lie about things or exaggerate things to try to smear Joe Biden. And if they do it in public, they're just going to be embarrassed like they have at every other fucking hearing. And I have a feeling they don't want to be embarrassed by Hunter Biden because it will raise Hunter Biden's stock once he embarrasses them. So they aren't going to do that. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think they'll ever agree to do it in public because they can't do anything but lose if they do that. And Hunter Biden's not going to do it behind closed doors. And besides, who shows up to subpoenas anyway? No fucking Republican does. All right. The last thing I wanted to talk about. This is kind of funny. Liz Cheney's got a book coming out pretty soon, a couple days. Who knows? Maybe even today. Now, you remember when Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, went to Mar-a-Lago to comfort a sad and starving Donald Trump after the January 6th riots at the U.S. Capitol, according to former U.S. Rep. Liz Cheney. McCarthy said they're really worried. He reportedly told Cheney, Trump's not eating, so they asked me to come see him. He went down there to kiss Trump's ring, and he needed an excuse, so he's trying to work off the sympathy of Liz Cheney. And I got to be honest, I don't know Liz Cheney well, but I've seen her talk enough. She doesn't seem like a sympathetic gal. She seems to be a no-nonsense gal. Now, Cheney's revelation about the post-insurrection comfort session appears in her yet-to-be-released book, Oath and Honor, which hit the airwaves Tuesday after CNN got a hold of a copy. Coming down to the last part, and I'm losing it. Cheney says, she said to Kevin McCarthy, you went to Mar-a-Lago because Trump's not eating? Cheney uses this anecdote to accuse McCarthy of lying about his relationship with the former president, whom he visited secretly 3 weeks after the January 6th attack. A photo of the two men together spurred Cheney to question McCarthy about the visit, with a demand to know, what the hell, Kevin? Cheney says other Republicans mock McCarthy for visiting Trump by comparing him to Tom Cruise's one-liner to Renee Zellweger in Jerry Maguire. You complete me, she says they wrote underneath a photo of the two men. His own people are making fun of him. Yeah, Kevin McCarthy, another pussy-ass bitch amongst the Republican Party. And I'll be honest with you, that visit has put us in the position we're in today. Donald Trump had lost the election. He was whining and crying. If they let him starve to death, the thought of that is just hilarious. They let him starve to death down in Mar-a-Lago, things would be a lot calmer right now. But the moment Kevin McCarthy went down there and embraced him and kissed the ring and brought him back in the fold, that just reinvigorated his power. And this has put the Republicans in the worst possible spot you can ever imagine and caused this country a lot of problems. His Republican Party compatriots, they knew it. The Democrats knew it. Donald Trump knew it. That's what Donald Trump was trying to do. These two clowns set up this country for failure when Kevin McCarthy went down and gave Trump some power again. And it's pretty frustrating. Kevin McCarthy is a piece of shit. His successor, Mike Johnson, is worse. He's actually worse. And what I think is going to happen is pretty much nothing between now and 2024's election. Ultimately, they'll have to get another CR or some deal with the budget, which they will get. They won't shut the country down under any circumstances. They had 2 times to do it, and they caved both times. They'll cave again, and we'll see what happens with that. But once this is all done and the 2024 election is over, then we can be done with Kevin McCarthy and Mike Johnson. They will be part of the minority, and they will be inconsequential. Donald Trump will be in jail, and we can at least try to start digging ourselves out of the hole they fucking put us in. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for spending the time to listen, tolerating my coughing. I hope you have a great day, and of course, we'll talk to you again tomorrow.